So there is a question here. In Vedanta, we call say Brahman as the rope and world as a superimposition of Brahman as snake. So we see the world and get scared and worried. Stress builds up in us. Then through Atma Vichara, self-enquiry, Brahma Vichara, inquiry into the nature of Brahman, we understand it's not a snake and rope, but it's the rope. The world is just the appearance of Brahman. So that understanding comes. Then the fear drops. There's a peace within. So that happens in our self also. We identify with our body and mind. The body and mind is a snake. The real I is the consciousness or Atma. So that identifies the body and mind. And there's a feeling of limitation. The self-enquiry leads to the clear understanding. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the intellect, I'm pure consciousness. ನಾನು ನಾನೆಂಬುದು ನಾನಲ್ಲ ಈ ದೇಹ ಮನಬುದ್ಧಿ ನಾನಲ್ಲ ಸಚಿದಾನಂದಾತ್ಮ ಶಿವನಾಂ ನಾನೇ ಶಿವೋಹಂ ಶಿವೋಹಂ. Then Jivatma and Paramatma Ekatvam is realized. Jiva Ishvara Ekatvam is realized. Jiva is my consciousness, individual consciousness. Ishvara is the universal consciousness or consciousness of the universe. So our one reality is realized, and that is called mukti or liberation. So now the questioner is asking, this okay, a rope and imagine the snake, but if really snake is there, then what to do? See, in any perception, two stages are there: recognition and superimposition. Let us say I see an object. That object is recognized in the mind. A name and form is used for recognition. The superposition happens subsequent to that recognition. That happens in any perception. I see a situation, and that situation I recognize by name and form. Then there's a superposition happens. Oh, this situation is not good. This situation is bad. This situation is dangerous. That superposition happens because of the past memory, past experiences. The mental experience gets superimposed on the objective experience through sense organs. This superposition is the cause of the problem. Seeing the rope, one mistakes the snake because snake is there in the mind. Imagine the snake is superimposed on the rope, but rope perception is there. Now, how to overcome this? How to find out which is real snake or which is imagined snake? You have to examine closely the reality of snake, what you are seeing. The snake, which you are seeing as imagine as me seeing, it's with a length, but it's not at all moving. It is lying there in the same position. So it may not be snake. That understanding is required. That means we have to examine the reality very closely. Then our mental reality get it clarified. Examining the reality is important. Being aware of the nature of what I am perceiving very closely with a sharp understanding will help us to understand, is it real snake or imagined snake? Real snake moves, imagined snake doesn't move. So this is requires a discrimination. So Vedanta teaches the discrimination to understand the difference between reality and imagination, which is superimposed. Superimposed imagination is for adhyasa. So for only solution for adhyasa, only solution for finding out whether it's a real snake or imagined snake is to live in the reality, live in the present moment. But our mind has a tendency to go to past or future, bring past and future and superimpose the current reality. So that tendency we have to overcome. It's called superimposition. And that can be done only through Vedanta Vichara, Atma Dhyana, in case of Brahman and Jiva. In case of the worldly object, rope and snake, we have to observe the snake clearly. Most of the time, what happens is the moment you pursue a snake on the rope, we get panicky. Our intellect stops, discrimination stops. We are losing our sense of reality. So, maintaining the sense of reality requires a practice. Living in the present moment, moment to moment, sharp observation of reality to understand what is my mental superimposition and what is reality. So that is very important to understand the difference between real snake and imaginary snake. So what happens the moment you pursue a snake, whether real or imaginary, there is a panic, fear arises in him. Then further observation is not possible. The observation is possible when the mind is calm and equanimous. You are able to do sharp observation. That ability to be calmness and do sharp observation is what is cultivated in spiritual journey. So what happens? The mind full of samoguna or rajoguna is very reactive. So spiritual journey is to cultivate a mind of sattva where there is a calmness and sharper observation is possible. In the sharp observation, you'll understand what is real, what is not real, what is my mental superimposition on what is reality, what is real snake, what's imagined snake. This understanding becomes clear. In tamoguna and rajoguna, mind is very reactive. Emotions rise, fear rises the moment you pursue something. That's why we have to learn the spiritual journey is about cultivating sattva guna, living in sattva guna. For that, upasana, karma yoga, and shravana manana nidhyasa help. Of course, enlightenment means going beyond sattva guna also, but a spiritual person should learn to live in sattva guna so that he is able to observe the reality as it is. He is able to observe the reality and live in the present moment, moment to moment. How do you bring sattva guna into our life? From rajasic and tamasic mind, we have to come to sattva guna. So for that, a lifestyle change is required. From unconscious living, we have to start living consciously. This is what is called spiritual journey. Enlightenment is not a result of journey. Enlightenment can happen or liberation can happen at any moment because you are already there. The spiritual journey is to cultivation of sattva guna or what we call as mind, which is calm, tranquil, and have a sharp ability. So how do you do that? For that, you have to have a lifestyle. Atmano mokshartham jagataya. Self-creation and selfless service. And through yoga or any practices, you have to master the mind. You have to bring down the rajoguna in the mind. For bringing the rajoguna in the mind and going towards sattva breath or prana is important. So that pranayama or breath control to take the mind to conscious center in our body is important. Karma yoga or selfless service is important. Then Shravana Manana Nidyasa, study of scriptures is important. And Upasana, meditation of different type helps to bring Sattva Guna. Now, in general, it's said that food is responsible for Sattva Guna. The food is very taken in very, very limited sense. Food is taken as what we eat through tongue. Sattvic food, which is not Rajasic and Tamasic, we should eat. That is true. But food has to be taken in more general sense. What we receive through five sense organs is called food. Through hearing, we can receive food. This is the food of ear. Through smelling, we can receive food of smell. Food. That's called smell. Food of nose. Food of nose. So through tongue, we can receive food. It's called food of tongue. Touch we can receive. Like that, we can receive food in all many ways. So suppose hearing. Okay, let's take the food of hearing. If you are in a bad company, constantly you'll hear criticism and negativity. So that becomes your food, and then you start going to samoguna. So good company or satsanga is very important in life. That's why I said satsangatve, nisangatvam, nisangatve, nirmohatvam, nirmohatve, vicharatatvam. Satsanga is the food for, with company of good people is food for hearing as well as sense organs, how they behave, how they understand. So we learn from company. Then food for food for smell. So some people get activated when this food for when they smell of something. So people who drink alcohol, the moment the alcohol smell comes, they get activated. This uh, yeah, any of the alcohol, any of the addictions happen through smell. Similarly, this actually alcohol takes you to tamoguna, lowers your consciousness. Smell itself traps you. Then touch traps also. You want to touch and feel something. Okay. Yesterday I heard of one of my friends. He is a poor man. Has a small shop in near Bangalore. He puts in Facebook. Finally, I brought my dream car, a Mercedes Benz. It must be his lifetime saving. But to touch and feel Mercedes Benz cars, he has spent his lifetime. So touch also is a food. That buying a Mercedes car already has gone to Tamoguna and Rajoguna. He has not discriminated what is important in life. So Sattoguna can be cultivated with proper discrimination. Atma Anatma Viveka, Nitya Anitya Viveka, Satsanga, good company, Shastra, Seva, Sharanagati. So entire spiritual journey is about cultivating Sattoguna. People think that entire spiritual journey is about enlightenment or liberation. It is the cultivation of Sattoguna in our life is the spiritual journey. Because liberation is not a journey. Liberation is the true nature. The gap between you and liberation is your, our mind is trapped in Rajoguna and Tamoguna. It should come to Shuddha Sattva, our pure consciousness. So that helps us to discriminate properly and get liberated. So, what is the effect of Tamoguna and Rajoguna in our life? Tamoguna means inertia, dullness. Rajoguna means activity. Tamoguna and Rajoguna are responsible for attraction and repulsion in life. Raga and Dvesha. I like this, I don't like this. The byproduct of Rajoguna and Tamoguna, or effect of Tamoguna and Rajoguna, is Raga Dvesha. Effect of Raga Dvesha is Kama, Krodha, Mada, Matsara, Moha, Lobha. These 6 disturbances of the mind called emotional disturbances. But in Sattoguna, calmness is there, a tranquility is there. In that tranquility, you are able to observe the things as they are rather than as projected by the mind. Sattoguna is also about awareness, about living in the present moment. So coming out of Tamoguna and Rajoguna and into Sattoguna, living in Sattoguna is called spiritual journey. In Sattoguna, the mind is calm and observation is sharp. When you observe sharply, you are able to find a solution very clearly if there's a problem. If there's no problem, you'll understand there's no problem, but the mind doesn't get agitated. The calmness of the mind is maintained. So now what is the balance between Sattoguna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna? So what is dominant in your life? Rajoguna, Tamoguna, Sattoguna. All gunas are required. For example, a person who is in Sattoguna will have to use Rajas for activity and service, and he has to take Tamas for resting. The question is, what in Rajoguna, the person is very dominated by activity, mental activity or physical activity. In Tamoguna, is dominated by laziness. Each person will have all gunas in different proportion. So finally, you have to the proportion of Sattoguna has to increase in your life, and Rajagunas will be there. They will work under the Sattoguna. The question is, the tail wags the head or head wags the tail. Sattoguna uses Rajoguna and Tamoguna, or Tamoguna and Rajoguna use the Sattoguna. That makes a difference in life. What are the qualities of tamoguna? Tamoguna is inertia, fear. Rajoguna is activity. Sattoguna is calmness and focus on service and knowledge. So we have to develop more and more sattoguna in our life. That's what is the purpose of spiritual journey. So Rajoguna is dominance of restless mind, lot of thoughts, or lot of activity, hyperactivity. They're all signs of Rajoguna. Sattoguna is calmness, peace, and living in the present moment. That is called Sattoguna. In Sattoguna, also using Rajoguna, there is action, but right action, no overaction, no underaction. The mind has less thoughts, more calmness.